I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. We've got stories. We've got breaking news, apparently, thanks to some of you who have, kept me apprised of the situation. So, if there's an announcement. Sorry, Chris, I announced on Twitter. So, that's usually where I go to post things, especially if I'm not feeling good. I'm not going to go around. I really don't go around to all my different social medias and post that stuff. But anyway, I was not feeling well yesterday, but I'm feeling better today. So we're going to do it. We're going to do some stories. We're going to talk about some stuff. We are going to, let's see, breaking news, of course. So thanks to some of you, we now know that New York Attorney General Letitia James has just busted a hedge fund manager for defrauding New York City and evading taxes. So now there's a lot of this stuff here. I don't know any of the details, so I'm just going to read it. That's what we're going to do. If I can find the actual story. All I know is that she said that the investigation began due to a whistleblower who came forward under the New York False Claims Act, and that it is after our investigation with the New York City Corporation Council, we're delivering the largest recovery against an individual in New York history. So I'll probably give you more details on that tomorrow. I'm looking forward to the details, the deets. All right, so another piece of news. Texas just lifted all mask mandates. Of course, it's Texas. Big surprise. We're not done with coronavirus yet. And we're still giving out vaccines. And most people still can't get a vaccine. Even the people who need it, especially. So, wonderful. Wonderful. Texas does what Texas is going to do. And then another piece of news, actually. So this actually came out earlier today. This was posted in The Intercept by Ryan Grimm. And apparently, Letitia James, same one in that other story, is going after Governor Cuomo. So good. So now, let's see. Apparently, she would have to endorse. So this is about like the power plays inside of New York City. How she basically tried to put, he tried to push a deal on Letitia James for her to come out against the Working Families Party in New York, which endorsed her. Didn't work out. And then he funded her opponent. So, interesting. Very interesting. And now, as a result of that, you have Cuomo being investigated for basically being a creep and, doing some sexual harassments. And, harassments. Her office is investigating that. Awesome. So that stuff. Maybe I'll have some more details about all those stories. But we are going to talk about some other things. We have more justice being delivered. It's being delivered. Then we've got MAGA goes after conservative YouTubers. So now this is interesting. There's a big conservative YouTube channel, pro-Trump all the time. And they are, well, they're at the whim of YouTube's new policies, right? Against conspiracy theories, essentially. And now they're going to have to be super careful. And we've got an example of that, and it's hilarious. So that's a little bit of fun. We've got Fox News and Kayleigh McEnany. And then Bernie Sanders wants to force the vote. Interesting. On the minimum wage. Oh, good fun. Fun stuff. So we're going to talk about all that. So buckle up and let's dive into it. We have first some MAGA people getting what they deserve. The FBI and federal prosecutors continue to identify and arrest MAGA chuds who were inside the U.S. Capitol on the January 6th failed insurrection. So now the latest arrest is, let me show you this man. All right, he's the guy in the red sweater, not wearing a mask, not concealing his identity whatsoever. And he's got to Keep America Great again, or I'm sorry, a Keep America Great sweater. Ugly red sweater. So, hey, there you go. Now, that man is identified as Grayson Sherrill. Now, the Charlotte Observer reports, that a newly unsealed complaint charges Sherrill with 3 felonies, knowingly entering and remaining in any restricted building or grounds without lawful authority, knowing and engaging in disorderly or disruptive conduct in a restricted area, and violent and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds. So, of course, he had been carrying a weapon. A series of photographs included in the federal complaint against him shows a dark-haired, ponytailed man wearing jeans, combat boots, and the red Trump sweatshirt, moving through the Capitol, either carrying a rod or a cane-like object. What is he going to do? Cane somebody? That's his Christmas MAGA sweater? Yes. It's true. True. Ugly Christmas sweater. in January. All right, anyway. So, of course, you notice, as I mentioned, he didn't wear a mask, didn't even bother, was committing crimes maskless. Forget for a second that we live in a pandemic. We're nearly a year into it, or at that time we were nearly into it. Now we're over a year into it, obviously. And as such, we were advised to wear masks for not only our own safety, but the safety of of others, right? Okay, but hey, forget that. Doing crime, right? He's doing crime. Overthrowing a lawful election by storming the Capitol building. You would think that you'd want to wear a mask, for at least for that. The guy next to him did. He's like, yo, man, I'm going to wear a mask. Just in case. Okay, it's smart, right? I mean, somewhat smart. Your first mistake was being there in the first place. That was not smart. But at least there's enough like, ooh, I don't know. I might want to cover my face while doing crime. obviously, not a lot of smart people there. They're not. Trump wasn't sending his best. Okay. Again, you have people live streaming themselves, smiling into the cameras without masks. So, as I said, not very smart. But this guy, he wasn't on the live streams. So, but okay, how was he caught? Other than, of course, the numerous pictures that were popped up. Well, pictures are one thing, right? So, but generally, I mean, there's an entire country. People came from all over the country. And so the FBI has been going to social media and to try to identify people. And, you know, sometimes, like, you have to really dig in to find the names. Or sometimes you get a tip, which is what happened in this case. This man was turned in by members of his own family. Oh, it's sad. Sad. Was there a sword in that cane? There could be. It's true. It could be. Could be. I have seen sword canes before. But yeah, turned in by his own family. Whoops. Probably because he's such a goddamn embarrassment. I mean, you know, hey, if I had a family member who was dumb enough to go to the Capitol, better, you know, and if I recognize, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's them. FBI, calling me up. And could you imagine? I'm so happy I didn't have any family members. And if you had, I'm sorry. Just imagine. I couldn't imagine. All right, so anyway, this is kind of like the rash of people who lost family members to QAnon, okay? Many of whom, by the way, ended up storming the Capitol as QAnon members, but they got sucked into a conspiracy hole spread by right-wing propaganda, you know, Fox News, and OAN and Newsmax, and they ended up doing the bidding of a wannabe dictator, and it's really kind of a sad story, right? And the reason I think that a lot of these people were so brazen about it, absolutely brazen, is for when, most of them, I believe they thought that they'd never see any consequences. Honestly, they're like, yeah, let's just break into a federal building. Who cares? Well, they're not going to come after me. They're not going to come after me. Even though that I'm the most oppressed, conservatives are the most oppressed people on the planet, they're not going to come after us. What? I mean, seriously. I know. But here's the other thing. In their story, I think they believe that they're, you know, that in their story, they believe that they're the heroes, that they're the good guys. Honestly, that's what they believe. And so they're in their story, they're the patriots. They're the ones who are protecting democracy. How ironic, obviously. Now, others, however, they knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't go there, you know, because they believed, right? They went there because they wanted to steal democracy, or they wanted to attack their own political enemies. All right. So now we go to the next guy, William Norwood. William Norwood had bragged about his plan to pose as Antifa. The Washington Post was reporting that law enforcement officials obtained text messages from Norwood, in which he talked about posing as a member of Antifa ahead of the Stop the Steal rally, which, by the way, absolutely planned. Obviously, this guy planned it. He's like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to go to the Capitol. I'm going to dress all in black. I'm going to look like Antifa, and then I'm going to blame them for the violence that I plan to perpetrate. Open and shut case. It's over. You're done. You're done, son. You planned this whole thing. You got the texts. The government got the texts of you saying, oh, yeah, I'm planning on Antifa. Let me tell you. Again, this is what he texts. I'm dressing in all black. I'll look just like Antifa. I'll get away with anything. I mean, look, can you imagine the amount of conservative media he must have consumed to come to that, conclusion? Seriously? Like, oh, Antifa gets away with everything. Antifa. They get away with everything. Well, okay. Well, what have they gotten into? What have they gotten away with, I should say? I mean, they've never killed anybody that we know of. All right. Zero dead people. Right-wing terrorism in this country. Over 300 people. And Antifa, 0. I'm just saying. But, you know, Antifa is still public enemy number one to the right wing and to the police. And yes, a lot of Democrats, by the way. Just noting that. And by the way, this is despite the FBI, who are not the good guys here. I'm not. It's kind of weird because the FBI is like, oh yeah, in this case, since they're going after the MAGA terrorists, great. Well, let's go after them. Yeah, good job, FBI. But at the same time, the FBI is not good people. I'm not a fan of the FBI. And you know, I'm going to get into that after this, but I want to show you a video here of FBI Director Christopher Wray saying this about the conspiracy theory of Antifa being at the Capitol on January 6th. Take a look.
Certainly, while we're equal opportunity and looking for violent extremism of any ideology, we have not to date seen any evidence of anarchist violent extremists or people subscribing to Antifa in connection with the 6th. That doesn't mean we're not looking, and we'll continue to look, but at the moment, we have not seen that.
I mean, again, that's FBI Director Christopher Wray. By the way, TYT Raid on Twitch. Hey, welcome, Raiders. I am just right now breaking down the, a couple of stories involved with the Capitol rioters and how they're facing a little bit of justice. So settle in. Good stuff. All right. All right. Now, to address some of the people who were wondering why I was like not happy with the FBI. Well, okay. The FBI has a long history of attacking leftist movements, okay, in this country. It's a lot like how the CIA internationally crushes leftist movements, all right, overseas. So the FBI has that role. It does this at home, okay? And they went after Martin Luther King Jr., not for his work against systemic racism, although that's probably a part of it, but because MLK Jr. was a leftist organizer and was pushing for basically intersectional socialism. So this is a socialist working movement, working class, white, black, Asian, Latin American, everybody, working class. You're a member of the working class. MLK wanted you to stand up against your own oppressors in capitalism. And so that is a side of MLK that nobody talks about. The right wing certainly doesn't talk about it, and neither does, unfortunately, a lot of the centrists. A lot of the Democrats, because right now they're in this capitalist system. And so, you know, the FBI threatened Martin Luther King Jr., wrote letters to try to make him, kill himself when he was in the Birmingham jail. So all of this stuff. Yes, exactly, Rederico. It's true. And so, yes, the FBI was not in favor of that message. All right. And so the FBI is not a good movement, or I'm sorry, not a good organization, because they continue crushing lefty movements, not only in the United States, but also like all over the globe. And so that's why I'm not a fan of the FBI. Never been a fan of the FBI, even though I do appreciate their work of finally begrudgingly going after these right wing, extremist movements in this country. But anyway, speaking of right-wing extremists, we got this chud, right? These MAGA chuds. Now, during the riot, Norwood photographed himself wearing a Capitol Police officer's vest that he had stolen and once again texted the group to talk about his achievements. Quote, "It worked. I got away with things that others were shot and arrested for." No. Okay. Attacking police officers. Well, okay. How are you going to get that? How are you going to get that vest, right? Well, he got a little violent with some of the police officers. In fact, Norwood was arrested last week and charged with violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds, obstruction of justice with Congress, and theft of government property. No charges on attacking police, though. That's very, very interesting. No charges on attacking the police. In fact, he's not been charged with assaulting police officer. Law enforcement officials are, however, scrutinizing text messages he sent where he talked about fighting 4 different cops and then stealing an officer's tactical vest and helmet. Okay. All right. what more do you need? I mean, what more do you need to realize these are the bad guys? These are the baddies. These are the fascists. All right. If you're against Antifa, which is literally just being anti-fascist, it's the name. It's literally in the name here, and it's not a movement. It's an ideology of being an anti-fascist is basically something that all Americans should ascribe to be. We should all be Antifa. But like, if you're not, and if you don't want to be, well, I got bad news for you. I got bad news for you, brother. If you're not Antifa, then you're pro-fa. You're not the heroes of the story, okay? And if you were there on January 6th, you're going to end up being arrested. Simple as that. You're not the hero here. You're the bad guy. And you fucked around. And now you're going to find out. Just saying. Just saying. All right. Let's go to MAGA getting mad at YouTube. Fun times. And hey, those of you who just joined on Twitch, by the way, please give us a follow. Helps us out greatly. Right. A pro-Trump YouTube channel is under fire from MAGA supporters because of their refusal to air pro-Trump conspiracy theories on their network, despite them, of course, getting very, very large from doing so. Now, this channel is the Right Side Broadcasting Network, and most of their content, about 95% of it, is like conspiracy theories stuff, or at least features like interviews with pro-Trump conspiracy theorists. So yeah, they're having a little bit of a difficult time. So now I go to a article here from the Daily Beast, and they talked about this. And basically, the Washington Post called this channel the unofficial version of Trump TV. In fact, there were rumors going around that the person who runs this pro-Trump YouTube channel was in talks with Trump about making partnering up for Trump TV. So that's fun. Now, again, a lot of the stuff that they did was go to rallies, cover anything Donald Trump related, interview Trump supporters, which has been getting them in a little bit of trouble. So now you have that YouTube crackdown against fake news and conspiracy theories. It's kind of hurt this business model just a little bit. Sad. As Will Sommers can explain in this piece, quote, "For a year, the Trump base has embraced conspiracy theories about election theft and COVID-19, exactly the kind of content, if live streamed on RSBN, that could get the channel kicked off YouTube." Now, I would argue, of course, that a lot of these conservative outlets have covered so-called election fraud for quite some time, using like the whole specter of voter fraud as an excuse to disenfranchise black voters since 2013. And this has been all over YouTube before. Okay, so this is not a new phenomenon on YouTube. In fact, the right-wingers have been all over YouTube. We on the left, myself, have been battling these misinformation and disinformation channels for a very, very long time. So now this channel comes up during, the Trump administration and during, the primary and all that stuff, gets gigantic, over 1.5 million, subscribers, real huge. Okay. And their content is now suddenly unpalatable for YouTube. So now I've got a couple of points on this. All right. So for one, this is not a First Amendment issue. Conservatives whine and cry and they scream about, oh, we're getting kicked off social media. We're getting kicked off these platforms. We're being deplatformed, guys. They're going after my First Amendment rights of free speech. First of all, it's not the government that is, censoring your speech, right? Free speech basically protects the government from arresting you for saying that, such and such congressman is a bad person, right? I mean, I could think of so many different examples, but I myself don't want to get kicked off YouTube of things that they've said. So I don't want to do that. All right. But what YouTube is owned by Google. It's a private corporation. All right. Now, a private corporation can decide what they want aired on their platform. And so, as I mentioned before, this has been going on for a very, very long time. I mean, this stuff went completely unchecked for years and years and years. YouTube made a lot of money off of it. A lot of these content creators made a lot of money off of it. Alex Jones was a great example. And then what YouTube did is they changed their policies once they got their hand caught in the cookie jar, essentially, after they have made all of this profit. So now the second point is related to this, and that's the fact that these platforms are very, very large, and that it's also pretty troubling when you think about these companies essentially being gatekeepers, right, of what you can see and hear. Because without these gigantic platforms, not a lot of people are going to hear this stuff. So now I mentioned this nuance because in some respects, I'm glad that they kicked off people like Alex Jones. Okay. I'm glad that they've removed some of these alt-right pipelines. All right. To, and they keep them out of, or at least they're trying to keep them out of the algorithm. But at the same time, I do worry about corporate power. I do worry about gatekeeping. And so that's a big problem. That said, you're not going to find the nuanced position in the MAGA crowd, okay, about what the right side broadcasting network is basically having to do to keep their channel from being shut down, because they make a lot of money off their content. And so what they're doing is they're censoring their own content. In fact, let me give you some examples. One of them is during the recent broadcast in Orlando. Now, one of their fans was being interviewed by a man with the pseudonym Mike-nificent. Mike-nificent. They claim that Trump votes had somehow been altered from outer space. Yes. Here's what they said. You know how they said they changed the votes using a satellite? Nobody said that. One woman told him in a remark that went out live to more than 100,000 RSBN viewers on YouTube. Mike-nificent then cut her off. Quote, "We can't go there. We'll lose our entire platform," he said, backing away from the woman as she grew increasingly irate. "We have to play by the rules." Not magnificent. You know what? That is so much better than Mike-nificent. What were they thinking? Another woman said, "I also covered this election and it was stolen." Mike-nificent responded by saying, "Oh, well, some would say that it hasn't been stolen." Yeah, yes. Some would say. They would say that Biden won the presidency fair and square. Fair and square. So, wink, wink, Biden won, he said. So, yeah, there we go on that. So, now it's kind of hilarious because, for one, it shows you how insane the Trump base is and how they just cling to these, right? And how reliant their media has been for so many years on this propaganda, on this peddling these ridiculous conspiracy theories, right? Now, as Sommer puts it, the channel is in a tough spot. Quote, "After helping to create Trump's base and fueling baseless allegations that Trump won in 2020, RSBN is now stuck between YouTube's enforcement and a hoax-addled conservative audience it relies on for donations, of course, as well as views and money." Okay. Now, the resulting attempts to keep RSBN free from pro-Trump conspiracy theories often result in comical ad hoc attempts at muting speakers or rapid changes in tone from RSBN talent. Sommer writes, "Faced with the prospect of losing its YouTube audience with a ban, RSBN has to constantly avoid crossing an invisible line, promoting election fraud promoters at one moment, then cutting their mics as soon as they say something that could get the channel banned." And I'm going to show you an example of that with the My Pillow guy. So this is fun. Faced with a threat of deletion, RSBN is stuck cutting off right-wing personalities who would otherwise be heroes to the audience. One example happened on February 20th when the channel streamed a rally in Ventura, California, promoting a recall against Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, look, recall rallies are fine. Nothing wrong with that. If you think Governor Newsom has done a bad job, which a lot of lefties are thinking that Newsom has done a pretty bad job. That's totally legit. However, at this rally, they invited a speaker who was somewhat controversial. That speaker was Dr. Judy Mikovits. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the name, she was in that viral video, literally viral in this case, at the start of the pandemic that basically peddled a bunch of a bunch of conspiracies about the coronavirus. It was called Plandemic. Remember that? Yeah. Almost as soon as Mikovits started talking, RSBN's camera panned away from the stage to focus on a person named Blake Marnell, who goes by the name of Brick Suit because he often wears a brick pattern suit meant to imitate Trump's border wall. So we got Mike Nificent and Brick Suit. I'm gonna have to start watching this channel more. This sounds interesting. Demon Sperm, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember talking about her. Wait, is that the same? No, that can't be the same one. No, because I think there's two different weird conspiracy ladies that I've seen. But yeah, Mikovits was the Plandemic lady. All right, so now Marnell, who was very surprised to be on camera, began talking in a way to, try to help RSBN avoid covering her speech, was of course full of anti-vax, and coronavirus conspiracy theories, essentially. All right. So now the comment section got a little angry, got a little frustrated. One said, "Quit talking. RSBN is so rude and I'm done with them," wrote another. Now, that prompted an unseen narrator to go back in here and saying they couldn't show Mikovits' speech at the risk of losing its channel. Quote, "If we let the speaker talk right now, we will lose our YouTube channel. They will take this video down," claiming that RSBN had one strike from YouTube after broadcasting something from Alex Jones. The camera turned back to the stage once she was done, but not for long. Soon, another speaker was talking about how he didn't just not enforce mask wearing, but banned anyone who dared wear a mask. Quote, "They represent the lockdown. They are the lockdown." Joe from the studio ended up cutting back in to the broadcast, saying, "Just to give you full disclosure that there is a certain guidelines that we have to on platforms that we cannot talk about certain subjects." There's also other ones, but let me go to, yes, that's right. This was Oklahoma. Outraged RSBN audience members accused reporters who were wearing masks at this event of being, quote, liberal slaves, prompting RSBN host Liz Willis to launch a lengthy on-air apology in which she said she was only wearing a mask because she lived with elderly parents. Now, I'm going to wager that the MAGA crowd didn't really care. Again, they're part of the group that wanted to sacrifice grandma at the altar of capitalism so that they can go back to tipping poorly and harassing waitresses at Applebee's, based on their looks. That's it. That's really it. Now we go to Mike Lindell. So now MyPillow founder Mike Lindell is one of the biggest sponsors of the Right Side Broadcasting Network. In fact, Lindell bought a huge amount of advertising on the channel, with anchors cutting into broadcasts from CPAC to promote his pillows and sheets, and at times roughly a quarter of the screen during the broadcast at CPAC was taken up by a still image of Lindell hugging a pillow. Not even Lindell can avoid getting muted, as I'm going to show you. This happened on Sunday during an interview. Take a look.
This is our bodies. This is Mark of the Beast stuff, and I don't care. I'll just put it right out there. This is revelation. I mean, if you're going to make them do that over in Israel, and why do you think they went to Israel first? What? That's kind of strange. This is weird, guys. It actually started, the list started in Spain. It started in Spain, where Spain started putting people on this new world list. And I want to tell another thing here in the United States that happened on Inauguration Day. On Inauguration Day, the WHO and the CPC, they put a thing out now. Everyone's seen, oh, COVID's going down. The rates are going down. They're telling you wear a double mask and do all this other stuff. Let me tell you, that's not.
That's not the sound going out. They cut the mic.
Careful. I hate to do it. You know I love you, but due to YouTube's guidelines, we will get our whole platform shut down if we talk about vaccines.
Vaccine. Well, this is over in Israel.
Yeah, I know. We love you. We love you. We love you.
Well, I mean, you know, as soon as you started talking about Israel, like, oh, God, no, hit the button. Oh, Jesus. No, don't do that. Hit the button. Mute him.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
That's what they were saying in the box right there. Oh, no. I'm in trouble. Look, it's both hilarious and also it does make me a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, for one, you could say, look, if you can't follow the rules, go to a new platform. All right. And look, there are other platforms out there. BitChute's one of them, but it's full of Nazis, like literal Nazis. That's all that's there, basically. But there are other platforms. But the problem here is YouTube did not have really any good competitors. The only rival to YouTube is Facebook. And Facebook has already deprioritized its newsfeed. They're not interested in getting into any of this, into the political stuff. All right. So in terms of reach and monetization ability, there's not a lot of real competition out there. And as far as being a content creator myself, that does concern me. I'm just saying. That does concern me. But at the same time, I gotta admit, it's kind of hilarious watching these people have to dance around insane conspiracy theories and mute their own personalities for spewing those conspiracy theories. You know, it really is the combination of the right wing getting what they deserve for building these monsters for clicks. And so now here's an important thing to note throughout all of this. Notice how nobody, and you hear this, you know, from conservatives all the time. Oh, they're banning us for being conservative. They're banning us for our views. Okay, well, nobody's getting censored or banned for being a conservative. Nobody's getting pushed off Twitter and YouTube arguing for lower taxes on the rich, less government, more free trade. Okay, nobody's being banned for arguing for more capitalism and less government oversight or regulation. That's not what's happening. Okay, you can make those arguments all day. In fact, they have channels dedicated to them on cable news. It's all you see on cable news. So it's not conservatism that's being banned. Okay, you know, it's what it is. It's those views. Those are the ones that get banned. The stuff that incites people into violence, like on January 6th, conspiracy stuff. All right, stuff that makes people question vaccines. That's not good. Especially since there is already an issue with the African-American community being skeptical of vaccines. Understandably, because there is a history of African-American people being used as human guinea pigs by, you know, medical procedures. And so there's already a distrust of vaccines in those communities. And that gets very difficult when we want to actually build up herd immunity through vaccines. But then you've got Patriot Fan 1776, you know, out there adding to that, you know, by promoting anti-vax content and conspiracy content. That doesn't help your cause. That doesn't help. Okay. And so that understandably is going to get you banned. And hate against vulnerable people also gets you banned. And I'm actually totally okay with that. All right, because that's not presenting a real political ideology. What the Republican Party has essentially become, what the conservative movement has become, is basically just reactionary, complete and total reactionary. They don't have any new ideas. They don't have any good ideas. All they have is pushing back against any sort of progress. And so these channels grow by getting people outraged and afraid for some clicks. And that's what's going on. And it is interesting and kind of fun to see that these channels are being, not necessarily shut down, although some are, but now having to adhere to a completely different rule set than they were used to, that they had built their entire their entire channel on, and seeing them try to navigate that stuff that I have to navigate. And the reason I don't get shut down and I don't get demonetized anymore is because, well, I don't do conspiracy theories, but there are people that have to be careful too, who push back against conspiracy theories that also tend to get demonetized sometimes because the algorithm is kind of broken. So they need to work on that. But otherwise, again, I don't see the issue with going after these specific channels for and having these these rules set up to try to prevent people from falling into extremism. All right. Go to Katie McEnany. They also sterilized people in the previous administration. That's true. They did sterilize people on the border. I talked about that. All right. Fox News has officially announced that former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany will join the network as a paid contributor. Now, of course, we all knew that was going to happen. Fox viewers love Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh McEnany is really good at lying. I mean, really, really exceptionally good at lying. I mean, really good. And also, the viewers love her because she apparently owns the libs or something like that. I keep seeing memes where she own the libs, own the Biden administration. How? But anyway, now the love that has been felt by the viewers, not exactly being felt everywhere else in the network. In fact, the Daily Beast again reports that some insiders within the network are less than thrilled about this entire thing. In fact, here's one of them, an insider, saying, quote, "It's truly disgusting they fired hardworking journalists who did care about facts and news reporting, only to turn around and hire a mini Goebbels whose incessant lies from the White House helped incite an insurrection on our democracy that got 5 people killed, including a police officer." Them strong words. Woof, mini Goebbels. Holy crap. Now, you might be wondering, right? Wait, were there actually hardworking journalists that worked at Fox News who cared about facts? And why weren't they fired within 2.5 seconds of actually doing their job? Okay, well, let me answer that a little bit. Fox News actually has 2 different divisions. I don't know if you know this. They've got straight news. So that's supposed to be their non-opinion programming. Now, straight news on Fox News obviously is more, has conservative bias, okay, and has a perspective. Okay, you know what? I'm actually fine with perspective. You know why? Because I do perspective. I do perspective on my show. It's from a blue collar, progressive perspective. That's. So I'm gonna have my own bias, but my own biases happen to line up with facts and information, and actually, facts and information inform my biases. And so, a little bit of a different thing than Fox News generally. Now, that's one side, and the other side, of course, is the opinion side, which is just unhinged, which is just Sean Hannity making up whatever he wants, Tucker Carlson essentially making up whatever he wants and being a actual, white supremacist. Now, the straight news shows, even though they've got a perspective, they've got a bias, they still have to accept reality to some extent. All right. And so now that source appears to be referring to a longtime political editor named Chris Stirwell. who was fired back in January. Remember that story? Where, he was fired and purged from the network because he had the audacity to report on facts. He called Arizona for Biden during the election. Yep. Reporting on factual information, Arizona did indeed go for Joe Biden. And they're like, nope, unacceptable. Unacceptable. How dare you report on facts? This is supposedly the straight news guy. All right. And so the network got upset because, well, hardcore MAGA people had a meltdown. They exploded. All right. And so now this leads to the statement from the insider, quote, post-Trump Fox is quickly becoming a very scary place, as if it wasn't scary before, and quite dangerous for our democracy, as if it wasn't dangerous before. Nothing what he's saying is really all that new or surprising to me, but nonetheless, they say it's not even conservative news anymore. They plunged into an alternate reality where extremist propaganda is the only course on the menu. Well, as I mentioned, Fox News has always been conservative propaganda, pro-Republican. That hasn't really changed. They've always pushed, conspiracy theories. In fact, I remember years before Trump got elected, where you had Donald Trump on Fox News saying, Obama birth certificate, where is it? I got somebody in Hawaii right now. I got an investigator. He's looking for that birth certificate. So don't tell me that, it's just because of Trump being president. Now Fox News has crossed the line. Now they're dangerous. They've been delegitimizing Democratic presidents for over a decade, at least. And so, yes, were they described as as pro-Republican propaganda? Yeah. Look, Fox News was created by Roger Ailes to basically be for the Republican Party. This is news for Republicans. And then slowly over the years, they built this alternative reality bubble, that has gone crazier and crazier and crazier. And so now it's led a lot to the polarization that we have in this country now. And so, to be fair, though, while they had conspiracy theories before, during the era of Trump, it actually ramped up quite a bit, while the level of discourse on Fox News actually decreased in the Trump era. So, it has gotten worse. It has gotten worse. Now, another Fox staffer told the Daily Beast the decision to hire McEnany was, quote, upsetting. Quote, so many good people are out of a job now, and I'm sure she'll get a huge contract. The staffer said, adding that ultimately the hiring makes no sense. It does make sense since so many Fox viewers love McEnany. Quote, it bothers me that it's basically a slap in the face to the hardworking journalists that value real news and facts, but it also doesn't surprise me because they have shown that they don't give a damn about facts and real news. A third staffer lamented that there is no objectivity in this business anymore. Quote, it's a self-serving profiteering enterprise, adding that McEnany was hired because of name recognition, notoriety, and obvious willingness to say anything her employer desires. All of that, of course, is absolutely true. However, again, I feel like it's been this way for a long time. Not just because of Trump, but for a very long time. I mean, for decades, it started with conservative talk radio, by the way, that spread and spread and spread. Rush Limbaugh, the late Rush Limbaugh, I love saying that. He's the one who really kind of started this whole thing and helped build up to the modern conservative, media environment. And that same environment helped boost up Donald Trump. And so all of that stuff ultimately comes from those few in Limbaugh and all the rest, and added to Fox News and Glenn Beck, remember that guy? And now it's online on YouTube, everywhere else. It's not a surprise. They created this complete alternative media reality that millions of people now live in. and breathe it in. And so they're consuming this news, so-called news, every single day. And Fox News, what are they going to do? They're a corporation, so they're like, we're going to lean into that. You know, MSNBC leaned into corporations. Well, Fox News leaning into conspiracies. And that's what it is. And that's what it is. And of course, it's all about money. It's all about businesses. They are a corporation. MSNBC is a corporation. All of our news from mainstream media outlets is all corporate. And yeah, that is one of the big problems. And so now another one of the problems is the Republican Party in general. All right. And right now, since Fox News was created to serve the Republican Party and the current Republican Party is Donald Trump, well, I mean, what are you going to do? You're Fox News. You're going to lean into it. Of course they are. Now, does that turn off some conservatives? Yeah, it does, but not nearly enough. And that is another one of the big problems. Okay. Fox News helped build out Trump. It helped condition viewers to accept baseless conspiracies, to own the libs at any price. And they're just reaping what they've sown. Not to blame staffers, by the way, who are, you know, or everybody else who works at Fox. I mean, yes, you can definitely blame the producers, maybe, the on-air talent, or so-called talent, of course. But I'm not going to blame the hairdresser. You got to have a job, right? But at some point, you got to know that you're working at a bad place, or got to realize it. And I think that's what happened here. I mean, Shinra employees, they knew they were working for a bad corporation that was literally killing the planet. They knew, but hey, man, got to pay the rent, right? Got to pay the rent. They knew they were working for a terrible company. And I think at this point, these staffers finally just, like, the dam burst. There was just so much, I think, guilt. Like, I know people that work for defense contractors. They know they're working for the bad guys. They know. They're like, you know, what can I do? Like, capitalism, I got to pay the rent. I got to, you know, pay the bills. I got to eat. And so, I mean, that's the situation. But at some point, you just get so fed up with the bullshit that you have to call it out. It just really shows how bad it's really gotten. Especially since, by the way, the Capitol insurrection, which really was the big moment. Now, one more quote here from the last staffer. It's just short and sweet. All right. He's going to end this all by saying, quote, "The viewers are morons." This is what Fox News thinks of its own audience. Wait, you don't think Sean Hannity also thinks his viewers are idiots? Or Tucker Carlson? Of course they do. They know the game. Well, okay, to be fair, there are some Fox hosts that do literally buy their own, they get high off their own supply, right? They buy their own bullshit. Lock, stock, and barrel. But, you know, I think most of them, the real savvy ones, like Tucker Carlson knows. Tucker Carlson knows that he's lying. That he's basically pandering to white supremacists. But that's what he's doing. And he does it because people tune in. He's one of the highest rated shows, might be the highest rated show on Fox News, or, you know, on cable TV overall, at least when it comes to news and politics. And so they give it to you because you like it. And so they hire Kayleigh McEnany, who is a well-known, renowned liar, to come lie to you because you like it. You eat it up. They're giving you exactly what you want, so you keep tuning in and giving them money. And that's why I do say the modern conservative movement is made up of two different types of people. You got the grifters, you got the marks. You might want to take a little while to think about which one you are if you're watching Fox News. All right. Fairness doctrine, good. I would say. Just in general. All right. One more here for y'all. Following the recent advice from the Senate parliamentarian on the minimum wage, this parliamentarian said, "No, you can't. You can't put this $15 minimum wage into a COVID relief bill." Bernie Sanders says, "Too bad. I'm gonna do it anyway." In fact, he says that he is going to force the Senate to vote this week on an amendment to increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. So now, as I said before, the parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough ruled last week that the provision setting the minimum wage at $15 an hour would not be eligible under the rules, these special budget rules. Now, the thing about rules is that you can change the rules. You can actually literally hold a vote to change the rules, or you can also just ignore the Senate parliamentarian, since she literally has no power. She's an advisor. Or you could do what Republicans did and just fire your Senate parliamentarian and then hire somebody who actually agrees with you. All this stuff that you could do. All right. So now her recommendation is basically worth nothing. And so now Bernie Sanders is saying, well, we're not going to let her get in the way of passing a $15 minimum wage. So that actually means that there's still a chance of this actually happening. Now, Sanders told reporters, "My personal view is the idea that we have a Senate staffer, a high-ranking staffer, deciding whether 30 million Americans get a pay raise or not is nonsensical." Absolutely. We have got to make that decision, not a staffer who's unelected. So my own view is that we should ignore the rulings, the decision of the parliamentarian. Sanders added, "Given the enormous crises facing this country and the desperation of working families, we've got to, as soon as possible, also end the filibuster. We cannot have a minority of members define what the American people want." 100%. I mean, the fact that we haven't gotten rid of the filibuster, that we don't have the votes to do so, it's, despite having a majority, it's ridiculous. Now, as far as the wage is concerned, here's what he said. "To the best of my knowledge, there will be a vote on a minimum wage, and we'll see what happens," Bernie says. "I intend to offer the bill that will raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and we'll see how the votes go. If we fail in this legislation, I will be back. We are going to keep going." Oh, I love it. We are going to raise that minimum wage very shortly to $15 an hour. Let's do it. Let's do it, Bernie. Now, of course, there are Democrats that are standing in the way. One of them is Joe Manchin. The other one is Kyrsten Sinema. So now Joe Manchin has his own plan, separate from the rest of the Democratic Party. Now, most of the Democratic Party has campaigned. They've run on this. Yes, we're going to do a living wage. We're going to raise it to $15 an hour. This is what they're going to do. Kamala Harris ran on this. Biden ran on this. Numerous Democrats during the election ran on this. And so to go against that, to not do it, would be a massive failure when you supposedly have control of the government. And a lot of it has to do, of course, with these two Democrats that really, at least in the case of Joe Manchin, really just wants to get his ass kissed. He loves being the so-called swing vote. Okay. So now in trying to be a self-important ass, Manchin got his own plan to raise the wage to a whopping $11 an hour and index into inflation. So, that is $1 more than the Mitt Romney proposal to raise the minimum wage. Yeah, Mitt Romney's getting into this with a group of so-called moderate Republicans to raise it to $10 an hour. So now let me be clear here, okay? Manchin, Romney, Bernie, $15 is not what we wanted. That's actually not the wage that we need or should be going for. But $15 is the compromise. It is what we're willing to settle on, at the very least. It should be much higher. But you know what? For now, we'll take $15 an hour as a compromise. All right. And so I want to be very, very clear on that. All right. Now for Manchin, he's, it's not surprising to see Manchin fighting harder against raising wages than he ever did against Donald Trump. And it's not because, he's a moderate or a centrist. Again, a moderate centrist approach would be $15 an hour. And why? It's because the numbers back me up. There is no state in this country where you can live and rent a home on $7.25 an hour. All right. You just can't. Even in West Virginia, one of the cheapest states to live in, as well as one of the poorest in the country, a person still requires $14 an hour to live without government assistance. All right. So let me just, the numbers are very clear. We need a wage, a raise in the wage, and we've needed it for a long time, and we need it desperately. All right. So what we need is that right now to go to that compromise position and then continue to fight for higher wages after that. It is a fight that never ends. All right. So now, Elizabeth Warren, she also favors a vote to overrule the parliamentarian. She agrees, but also says, you know what we should also do? Get rid of the filibuster. So now, look, Elizabeth Warren has pretty poor political instincts and has made some very questionable decisions, especially with politics. But in this, she's right. And so given that Elizabeth Warren is saying this and how, career-minded she is, I think it's a pretty safe bet that a lot of people, I think this is a popular position that even she's willing to stake her name on, which again, you don't get that from Elizabeth Warren on a lot of things. And so I think there's some fire behind this call to end the filibuster. So, and I think that's great. Here's what she said. Understand the only reason that we're in this mess is because of the filibuster. If we get rid of the filibuster, then we wouldn't have to keep trying to force the camel through the eye of the needle. And that's actually a pretty great Bible reference as well. Instead, we would do what the majority of Americans want us to do in this particular case. That's raise the minimum wage. Manchin, as I said, along with Sinema, they've also vowed to fight against any effort to eliminate the filibuster. In fact, asked if he might change his mind at some point, he turned around and yelled at reporters, quote, "Never. Jesus Christ, what don't you understand about never?" So, all right. Let me just point out, Joe Manchin doesn't give a damn about progress. Okay? Joe Manchin is basically a Republican. The filibuster, as it's been used and abused by Mitch McConnell, is basically there to stop any sort of progress. Mitch McConnell has literally abused it for decades to prevent Democrats from basically doing anything. Now, there are some Democrats that are actually happy about that, like Joe Manchin, because they're secretly Republicans and they don't want any sort of progress. I mean, it's fairly clear, right? I mean, why else would you keep a thing that guarantees that your side loses every single policy fight ever to Republicans, while Republicans always tend to get their way? Well, maybe it's because you're on their side. Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema they're with the Republicans. They're with the Republicans. Full stop. And so now, that said, Bernie's plan to force this particular vote, that's a good strategy, because the only Democrats that are really openly against this are Sinema and Joe Manchin. Forcing the vote would put those two people on the spot, not just for stopping the wage, which many Democrats ran on, but they're actually really smart putting this into a COVID-19 bill. That's that relief bill. If you sink that, I mean, you're gonna hear from everybody, because this is bipartisan, popular across the board, and is very, very necessary. And if they hear that the Democrats are the one that sunk it, bloodbath in 2022 and in 2024. And if the Democrats get sunk because of Joe Manchin, people aren't going to care which Democrat it is. They're going to blame all Democrats. And that's why this is important. right? That's why this could actually work. This is literally their chance to get this done, which is why it was very important for Bernie Sanders not only to fight, but also to keep this in, to not abandon the $15 minimum wage and take it out of the COVID-19 relief bill. He's saying, we're going to leave it back in and we're going to have a vote on this. All right, we're going to have it. We're going to have a vote and we're going to see where the votes lie. And if you vote against it, well, I mean, it's not my fault consequences you're going to face if you vote against this. And I'm saying that the Democrats have so much to lose if they allow Manchin to sink this entire thing. Harris, Biden, other Democrats ran on this. If they don't do this, who's going to vote Democrat ever again? They already waffled on the $2,000 checks. Yeah, I know. They found a way out of that. Biden did because, technically $1,400 plus $600, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, whatever. That's some tricky, underhanded shit right there. But on this, there's no clear path out of this. You can't blame the Republicans because you're doing budget reconciliation. So you only need a simple majority. And by the way, Republicans are pushing their own minimum wage increase. And so, Republicans can say, well, I mean, we were looking to raise the minimum wage. What were the Democrats doing? They weren't doing anything. They let it go to $7.25 an hour. And, I mean, vote for us. And then you got Josh Hawley out there who was also pushing this weird, confusing mess of a tax credit thing. But he can also go out there and say, well, look, I was trying to raise wages for you, sort of. I mean, so you can't blame the Republicans in this case. You also have the fact that the Democrats are in the majority. And if they can't get something like this done when they're in the majority, what makes you think that the American people are going to want to put Democrats in the majority? The Democrats, they suck at politics. But do they suck that much that they're going to risk everything for Joe Manchin? I don't know. I've seen some bad decisions before from the Democrats. So maybe, maybe. But this would probably rank up there for political blunders. They just have no excuse not to pass this and will have no one to blame but themselves when they get blown out in 2022, 2024. So, all right. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation, BT. Thank you again, TYT, for the raid on Twitch. Much appreciated. We're going to go and raid someone else. Who are we going to raid today? I think we haven't done a surfs raid in a while, a little bit. So I think I might do that. Although we have touring news, it's doing some political news as well. Hassan doesn't need my raid. That's the only people I know that are on right now. So I think we'll probably do a surfs raid. But before you go, please, oh, you know what? Follow our channel. And I want to read some super chats and some thanks some people who have followed us on Twitch as well and gifted some subs. Ravaging Wolverine, thank you for subscribing 5 months with Prime. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Oh, so many here. Trashy Plays. I think that was over the weekend. I want to thank Tempadan for gifting another tier 1 sub. Let's see. This is always the awkward part when I'm like reading the screen, which is like way over here. But yes, thank you for the new follows, by the way. I do appreciate that. Super chats. Did I watch Vadim's video on Tim Pool? I didn't get around to it yet, although I should have. I definitely want to check that out. And then get Vadim on the show to talk about this. Because, I think that'd be a really interesting conversation. So I got to get to that first. But thank you for reminding me. Yes, I'm well today, Trevor. Thank you. Progressive Jedi Master. I do have I do have a lightsaber. The thing on the left says it's time to get the dinos out of office. Absolutely agree. So unfortunately, Joe Manchin's not going to be up for re-election until 2024, I believe. So primary challenge to take down this guy and actually get a progressive in there. It's going to be really difficult because of, West Virginian politics, but we got time. See if we can do it. All right. So everybody, thank you for joining the show. Please like and share the stream, share the videos. Thank you all on Twitch, by the way, and on Facebook. Love you all. Who am I having on the show next? I have no idea. I'll figure it out. All right. Thank you all. Love you. We're raiding the serfs, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Masturbate all day long. Don't you want to please me?
Please clap. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.